The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 8th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Then Jesus and his disciples arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you done to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these, so he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherds saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. They're wrestling with demons, or their demons have gotten the best of them. We often use this terminology when we encounter a sad experience where somebody we know has been wrestling with something that is bad, unhealthy, even evil, and it does overcome them. It does get the best of them. It's oftentimes people we know who are productive in life and society, and then all of a sudden they come to a crashing fall. We think about Chris Carlton from WFAN with his gambling addiction, or Harvey Weinstein, or we think of Amy Winehouse, or even Bill Cosby, right? People who were public figures who had a real serious downfall. Sometimes we say this about people who are struggling with addiction, whether it be alcoholism or drug addiction, and all of a sudden as a result of that, they're no longer with us. They're dead. Wrestling with their demons. We often use that phrase just as a symbolic way of saying we're struggling with that thing which we know might overpower us and will overcome us. So what are some of the demons we might be facing in our lives in this world? Well, certainly addiction. That's a big one. Whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling or sex or money or power or whatever it may be. We see from the Old Testament lesson there's the addiction of not trusting in God. That demon-like way that the forces of unbelief seek to turn us away from that which is good, that which is faithful. From the epistle lesson we see the demons of discrimination, as Paul has to remind us that our faith in Christ Jesus tears down Jew and Greek and all the other labels that surround us as the people of God. So there are those demons that surround us on a regular basis, those things we struggle with, those things that sometimes can get the best of us. The gospel lesson brings us to that miracle where Jesus casts out the demon from the man possessed. And it raises the question for us about demon possession today. Is there such a thing? How do we respond and react to this gospel lesson where Jesus does this miracle? I mean, after all, we do know and understand that many of the things that back at the time of Jesus and in ancient times were thought to be demon possession, we have a much better understanding of today maybe medically, or through mental health, or from some other science or understanding and study that we've done. But the question raised is, there's still demons out there. Demons with which we need to turn to Jesus that can be cast out. There's been a couple times during the course of my ministry where I've encountered things that I could not explain. Things that went beyond science or medical health. In particular, I remember one woman, great mother. She was a flight attendant, 3 beautiful children. Some were in their teens, some were a little younger. Everything was fine, normal for her. Then all of a sudden, she got wrapped up in something on the internet, something that had some cult-like influences in it. And all of a sudden, something snapped in her in a terrible, heartbreaking way. She ended up having to be hospitalized, locked away in South Oaks, and she was never, to this day, the same as she was. And there really wasn't a treatment that could be found for her. For me, that was one of those moments that I shuddered in fear and in lack of understanding of what was going on, because no one could seem to figure it out. So, demon possession, or our demons get the best of us. I think what we can safely say is that when there's anything that seeks to tear down the goodness of God's creation, anything that is rooted in brokenness or sin or evil, it's demon-like. It's some power beyond ourselves. I think there's 2 things that we can take away from this gospel lesson that will continue to strengthen us and bless us as the people of God. First of all, by doing the miracle of casting the demon out of the man, Jesus reminds us that there are powers in things in this world that are unknown and that we cannot see, that seek to tear down God's creation. But secondly, and more importantly, in the face of those things that seek to tear down and destroy, Jesus is always the hope and the answer. Jesus is always the one that we turn to when we're in the midst of that struggle. Life in the flesh, life as a baptized child of God, is a constant struggle between good and evil, right and wrong, between the demons that seek to overcome us and the Spirit of God which is upon us. And yet the promises of Scripture, the assurance that Christ gives to us, the reason the Bible includes for us so many miracles where Jesus has the power to change creation and to cast out the sin and the evil, is to remind us that in the midst of the struggle, Jesus is the power. Jesus is the solution. And it's interesting. It's interesting to note how many, many help organizations and groups see this and understand this. At the heart of AA and many other 12-step help groups is that first step, submission to a higher power, a power beyond yourselves. Basic theology rooted in this gospel lesson. That if we're going to wrestle with our demons and if we're going to overcome them, we must look beyond ourselves. So whatever the demon may be in your life that you may be struggling with, the promise and the assurance for you is when we look to Jesus, we are not helpless and alone. And when we come to Jesus, he casts those demons out of our lives.